My name is Martin Luther King, Jr. I was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, the son of a Baptist preacher and a school teacher. From an early age, I understood the sting of segregation. I remember being told I couldn't play with a white friend anymore because of the color of my skin. It hurt. But my parents taught me something powerful, that I was just as good as anyone else, and that my dignity was not up for debate. Faith was the backbone of my upbringing. My father, a strong voice in the pulpit, taught me to speak truth with courage. My mother, with her gentleness and grace, showed me the power of love in action. They gave me a sense of purpose that would follow me all my life. As I grew, I found my voice, not just in church, but in books and ideas. I read Gandhi, I studied theology, and I began to see how love, truth, and nonviolence could be weapons of justice in a world bent on inequality. I earned my doctorate in theology from Boston University in 1955, but by then, something deeper was stirring in me. I wasn't just a scholar, I was a witness. That same year, something happened that changed everything. In Montgomery, Alabama, a black woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. She was arrested, and the people said, "No more." I was asked to lead the Montgomery bus boycott. I was young, I was unsure, but I said yes. We walked instead of riding. For 381 days, through rain and heat and threats of violence, we walked. Our houses were bombed, our families were threatened, but our spirits did not break. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. We had won, not with fists, but with faith. That victory lit a fire. The struggle spread. I traveled city to city, marching, organizing, speaking out. In 1963, we brought the movement to Birmingham. It was one of the most segregated cities in America. Peaceful protesters, including children, were met with dogs, hoses, and jail. I was arrested too. In that jail cell I wrote a letter, a response to white clergymen who said we were moving too fast. I told them, justice too long delayed is justice denied. Later that year, we marched on Washington. Over 250,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial. That day, I spoke words that would echo through history. I said, "I have a dream. A dream that my 4 little children would one day live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. A dream rooted in the American dream, that all men are created equal. I wasn't speaking just for black people. I was speaking for all people who had ever been pushed down, locked out, or told they were less than. That dream was not just mine, it was ours. In 1964, that dream took a step forward. The Civil Rights Act was signed into law, ending legal segregation. The following year, we pushed for the right to vote. In Selma, Alabama, we marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. State troopers beat peaceful marchers. The world saw the violence. And once again we rose, not with hatred, but with hope. The Voting Rights Act passed months later, but the fight was never just about laws. It was about lives. I began to speak out not only against racism, but also against poverty and war. I saw how inequality wore many faces, on the streets of Chicago, in the fields of the South, in the jungles of Vietnam. I said we must be tough-minded and tender-hearted, bold enough to confront evil, but compassionate enough to love our enemies. That love cost me. There were threats, constant danger. I knew I might not live to see the promised land, but I kept going because the movement was bigger than me. It was about the soul of a nation. On April 3, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, I gave my final speech. I said, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get to the promised land." The next day, I was shot and killed on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. But I was not silenced. My voice lives on in those who march, who vote, who speak truth to power. My dream is not a memory, it is a mission, and it is still alive, wherever people choose love over hate, justice over comfort, peace over violence. I was a husband, a father, a preacher, a son of the South. But above all, I was a servant of humanity. And I still believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word.